In the grip of a winter that bit like shrapnel, American aviation teetered on the edge of catastrophe. It was 1933, and the skies above the United States were a graveyard of shattered dreams. Engines roared louder than ever before, Pratt & Whitney radials thundering with 500 horsepower, pushing airframes to speeds that mocked the very laws of flight. But for all that fury, the airplanes couldn't fly. Not really, not where it mattered. Propellers. Those deceptively simple whirls of laminated wood and steel, mere extensions of the crankshaft, were the choke point. Fixed-pitch relics from the Great War, they were tuned for one speed, one altitude, one mood of the air. Climb too steep, and they'd cavitate like a drowning man, sucking wind instead of biting it. Cruise too fast, and they'd scream into over-rev, blades blurring into a haze of vibration that could tear a wing from its struts. Every test flight ended the same. A shuddering stall, a plume of smoke, and the sickening crack of splintered pine raining down on horrified ground crews. The industry was a storm of arrogance and failure. At Boeing, engineers in Seattle huddled over wind tunnel data, their faces gaunt under the fluorescent hum of drafting rooms. At Curtiss-Wright in Buffalo, rival designers sneered at unproven gimmicks, clinging to the gospel of simplicity. If it works on the ground, it'll work in the air, barely. Airlines, those fledgling titans of commerce, watched orders evaporate as passengers whispered of death traps in the clouds. The stock market crash of '29 had already gutted the field. Now, propeller woes were the final nail. Into this maelstrom stepped a man who belonged nowhere near it. Frank Walker Caldwell wasn't a barnstormer with grease under his nails from joyriding sop with camels. He wasn't a hotshot test pilot trading riddles with the Reaper. No, Caldwell was a thinker, an MIT man, class of 1912, whose thesis on mechanical efficiency read like a love letter to friction coefficients. Born in the dusty hills of Tennessee in 1889, he'd traded banjo strings for slide rules early, migrating north to Boston where the Charles River whispered secrets of torque and thrust. By the armistice of 1918, he'd wormed his way into the U.S. Army's Propeller Research Division at McCook Field, Ohio, a concrete bunker where the air smelled of dope varnish and desperation. Caldwell's war was fought not with bullets, but with blueprints. While aces, like Eddie Rickenbacker, tallied kills over the trenches, Frank tallied revolutions per minute. He dissected captured German propellers, those crude, hand-carved affairs that had propelled Fokkers to infamy, and rebuilt them better. By 1920, he'd patented his first variable pitch concept, blades that could twist mid-flight, like the feathers of a falcon adjusting to the gale. It was elegant, ruthless in its logic. Why fight the air? He'd scribble in his notebooks, margins crammed with vector diagrams. Command it. But elegance was a luxury in an age of expediency. The 1920s dawned with isolationism's chill. Aviation budgets shrank to match. Caldwell's ideas gathered dust in patent drawers at the engineering division. Too fiddly, barked his superiors, chain-smoking Chesterfields over oak desks scarred by compasses. Pilots don't need brains in their props, they need thrust. Rivals at the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, NAA, dismissed him as a tinkerer, peddling mechanically unsound notions that would jam at the first puff of crosswind. January 12, 1925, another rejection from the Corps. They call it Caldwell's contraption. As if precision were a curse. The numbers don't lie. A 15-degree pitch shift yields 22% more climb rate. But numbers are silent in committee rooms. I will build it myself. God help the fool who ignores the math. By 1929, the winds shifted, or rather, gusted. The stock boom fueled a frenzy of air travel. Barnstormers gave way to boardrooms in the sky. Caldwell jumped ship from government drudgery to industry gold. Hamilton Standard Propellers, a subsidiary of United Aircraft in Hartford, Connecticut. It was a propeller powerhouse, churning out wooden blades for Ford trimotors and Sikorsky floatplanes. But even here, Frank was the odd man out, a slide rule evangelist among hammer-swinging craftsmen. His workshop was a converted stable on the edge of the factory yard, reeking of linseed oil and horsehair ghosts. There, under the flicker of gas lamps, he forged his obsession. The controllable pitch propeller, not just adjustable, but governed. A hydraulic piston fed by engine oil pressure would snake through the hub, twisting blades via geared cams. Coarse pitch for takeoff grunt, fine for cruise efficiency. No levers, no prayers, just physics, automated. Junior engineer snorting, wiping sweat from brow. Mr. Caldwell, sir, begging your pardon, but this ain't no Ford Model T. You can't just tweak it on the fly. What if the oil freezes at 10,000 feet? Or leaks in a barrel roll? It's suicide on a stick. Caldwell pauses, eyes narrowing behind his spectacles. He doesn't snap, he calculates. Son, he says, voice like gravel under tires, suicide is flying the same pitch from sea level to storm clouds. This isn't a prop, it's a servant. It listens to the engine's heartbeat and obeys. The first bench tests were biblical in their fury. Whirl stands, massive electric motors spinning props at 2,400 RPM, shook the stable's rafters like an earthquake. Blades hummed into invisibility, then whined as governors engaged, pitch shifting with a hydraulic hiss. Successes were fleeting. A smooth 20-degree twist, efficiency spiking 18% on the dynamometer. But failures? Catastrophic. A seal burst, oil spraying like arterial blood, fouling bearings and a screech of seized gears. Another test? A blade fatigued and snapped, embedding shards in the concrete wall inches from Caldwell's head. Word spread like smoke from a hangar fire. At Hamilton Standard's boardroom, executives, suited vultures with ledgers for wings, summoned him. Frank, growled the VP of Engineering, a paunchy ex-Army colonel named Hargrove, this hydromatic fever dream of yours? It's bleeding us dry. $15,000 in prototypes, and for what? A Rube Goldberg that'd fail its first combat spin? Caldwell stood ramrod straight, grease flaking from his cuffs. Colonel, with respect, the fixed pitch is the relic. Your trimotors are grounding themselves at the first headwind. Give me 6 months, one airframe. I'll prove the climb. Hargrove's laugh was a bark. 6 months? We've got airlines screaming for deliveries now. Army Air Corps calls it unsound. That's gospel, son. Pack it in or pack your bags. The ridicule cut deeper than rejections. Whispers in the machine shops. Caldwell's folly. Cartoons tacked to lockers, a propeller with devil horns, twisting into knots. Even the Germans, those shadowy collectors of blueprints via consular spies in New York, chuckled in their Berlin archives. A purloined patent file stamped U.S. Propeller Innovations 1931 bore a marginal note in crisp Gothic script, Amerikanische Wahnsinn, unmöglich. Impossible. They see a machine. I see salvation. One flight. That's all I need. One flight to silence the doubters. Fate, that capricious mechanic, obliged with a wrench. February 1933, Denver, Colorado. A mile-high crucible where the air thinned to a razor and the Rockies loomed like the teeth of some ancient beast. Boeing's gleaming new prize, the Model 247, sat shackled to the tarmac at Stapleton Field. She was a marvel. All-metal skin, twin Wasp engines, a cabin for 10 in upholstered luxury. United Airlines had poured $4 million into her. First flight just weeks prior in Seattle, where test pilot Les Tower had coaxed her to 215 miles per hour, grinning like a boy with a new slingshot. But marvels don't conquer mountains on fixed pitch. The 247's Hamilton Standard props, ironic harbingers, were tuned for sea-level sprints. Over Denver's apron of altitude, they choked. Takeoff rolls stretched to 2,000 feet, engines bellowing at redline, yet climb rates flatlined at 500 feet per minute. The Rockies demanded 1,200, anything less, and you'd scrape granite like a skipped stone. United's brass panicked. Routes from Chicago to the West Coast were frozen. Orders for 20 more 247s hung by a thread. Passengers, those finicky barons of commerce, canceled en masse. Boeing's bullet, they sneered in trade rags, more like Boeing's brick. Desperation telegraphed east like a distress flare. Boeing's chief engineer wired Hamilton Standard, 247 grounded Denver. Props inadequate high altitude, need variable pitch demo ASAP. Stake careers, yours and ours. The missive landed on Hargrove's desk like a live grenade. He crumpled it, then smoothed it, eyes flicking to Caldwell's stable. Frank, he bellowed across the yard, voice carrying over the clang of stamping presses, get your ass in here. Caldwell entered the boardroom, prototype crate under one arm, heavy as a fallen angel. Hargrove jabbed a finger at the wire. Boeing's begging, says if we can't fix their tin goose, they'll shop Curtis. You got one shot. One, mount your damn contraption on their test bird. Fly it over Denver. Succeed and you're golden. Fail. Well, 800 souls in this plant, start polishing resumes. Caldwell nodded, no flourish. Understood, Colonel. When do we ship? Prep was a frenzy of nights bleeding into dawns. Caldwell's team, 3 loyal draftsmen and a gaggle of skeptical machinists, swarmed the stable. The prototype, a 3-blade aluminum beauty, 10 feet across, hub bulging with the hydromatic governor. Oil lines snaked like veins, a centrifugal flyweight perched like a watch spring sentinel. They bench-tested it to destruction, spinning at 2,600 RPM until the stand bucked like a bronco, vibrations rattling teeth, fillings loose. Seals held. Pitches shifted. 15 degrees course for torque, feathering to 80 for glide. Efficiency curves, plotted on onion skin graph paper, arched like a hawk's soar. But doubt gnawed. What of Denver's chill? Oil viscosities tripled at 20 below. And the 247's airframe, untested with variables. A mismatch could shear the crankshaft, sending blades cartwheeling into the fuselage. Worker, gruff, hesitant. Boss, you sure? This ain't no Piper Cub. Boeing boys'll have our hides if she shakes apart. Caldwell clasps the man's shoulder, grip firm as a vice. Fear's the real shaker, Tom. We've got the data. 28% thrust gain at 8,000 feet. She'll climb like she was born to it. By week's end, the crate rumbled west on a flatbed railcar, bound for Denver under tarps lashed against prairie gales. Caldwell rode shotgun in the cab, blueprints clutched like a talisman, staring out at endless snowfields. This is it, he thought, the train's clack-clack echoing his pulse. The numbers meet the sky. Stapleton Field, February 22nd. A biting dawn, mercury hovering at 5 degrees Fahrenheit. The 247 gleamed under frost, her fixed props already swapped by Boeing's frantic crew. Test pilot, Eddie Allen, Boeing's ace, cool as glacial ice, with a mustache like a broom bristle and eyes that had stared down stall spins over Puget Sound. He circled the nacelle, fingering the governor's access plate. Caldwell, huh? Heard you were the Mad Hatter of Hartford. This gizmo better not turn my bird into a blender. Caldwell, breath fogging in the cold, extended a gloved hand. Mr. Allen, it's not a gizmo, it's governed. Oil pressure at 300 psi shifts pitch in 2.3 seconds. You'll feel it like a whisper. Allen grunted, climbing the wing ladder. Ground crew swarmed. Chocks away, mags hot. Engines coughed to life, Pratt & Whitney's belching blue smoke, settling into a throaty rumble. Caldwell stood at the runway's edge, parka flapping, notebook open. Wind howled off the front range, carrying the scent of jet fuel and pine sap from the unseen peaks. Tower clearance crackled over the radio. Boeing 247, cleared for takeoff, runway 09. Winds 25 gusting 30, climb west to VFR conditions. Allen's voice, laconic through the headset, Caldwell borrowed from a lineman. Roger that. Let's see what Frank's Folly can do. Throttle quadrant forward. Props bite, course pitch engaging with a subtle hydraulic sigh, inaudible over the roar. The 247 lurched, accelerating smoother than silk, no overspeed whine. 80 knots. 100. Rotation at 85, nose wheeling skyward like a falcon from a gauntlet. Climb rate, the needle flickered, 600, 800, 1,100 feet per minute. Allen banked left, circling the field, altitude spooling to 5,000 feet as if gravity were a suggestion. On the ground, Boeing engineers gaped at their theodolites. Holy hell, muttered one, scribbling furiously. She's eating the air. Caldwell's hand trembled on his pencil. Not fear, but vindication. It works. God, it works. Allen's loop complete. A gentle descent, props fine pitching to a whisper, touching down at 75 knots, 15% shorter rollout. He taxied in, cutting engines with a dying cough. Shutting down, he vaulted from the cockpit, grinning wolfish. Frank, you son of a bitch, felt like the damn thing was reading my mind. Climb like a homesick angel. United's gonna order a fleet. Cheers erupted, muted at first, then roaring, echoing off the hangar walls. Hargrove, who'd wired west in a panic, slapped Caldwell's back hard enough to bruise. You crazy bastard, you did it. But as the sun crested the Rockies, gilding the 247 in molten light, Caldwell slipped away to the telegraph office. His wire to Hamilton Standard, Denver success, climb 1200 FPM at 7,500 feet, props governed flawless. Aviation changes today. He didn't whoop, didn't toast with the crew. Instead, he stared east, toward the factories and the coming storm. The invention no one wanted had taken its first breath, but breath was cheap. Survival demanded more. One flight had silenced the doubters in Denver, but back east, the real war was just beginning. Rivals sharpened their knives, and whispers of sabotage stirred in the shadows of the shops. Caldwell's Propeller wasn't just a machine anymore, it was a threat. Victory in Denver should have been the spark that ignited an empire. The Boeing 247 soared back into service, her variable pitch props gobbling altitude like a starved wolf. United Airlines wired orders for 20 conversions, $250,000 in Hamilton Standard's coffers overnight. Trade journals buzzed, Aviation Week ran a splash. Caldwell's contraption conquers the clouds, with graphs spiking like victory banners. Even the New York Times murmured of the propeller that thinks, a phrase Frank Caldwell clipped and tucked into his wallet, yellowing beside his MIT diploma. But success in the dog-eat-dog arena of Depression-era industry was a beacon for wolves. Back in Hartford, the factory that had built America's first practical airplane engine now seethed with a war no one declared. It wasn't fought with fists or flyers, but with files and falsehoods. Industrial sabotage cloaked as pragmatic caution, rival resistance sharpened into smear campaigns, and a war of opinions that turned data into dynamite. Caldwell's Propeller wasn't just an invention anymore. It was an intruder, threatening the sacred cows of simplicity and the fiefdoms of those who profited from fixed-pitch mediocrity. Hamilton Standard was a colossus, but one riddled with fault lines. Founded in 1929 from the merger of National Air Transport and smaller propeller shops, it employed 1,200 souls, machinists from the old shipyards, draftsmen poached from Sikorsky, executives with Wall Street pedigrees. At its helm, George J. Meade, the visionary who'd bet the farm on superchargers, but whose boardroom was a viper's nest. And lurking in the shadows, the ghost of competition, Curtiss Wright, that Buffalo behemoth churning out Hawk fighters and wooden props by the thousands, their engineers eyeing Hartford's patents like a fox in the henhouse. The backlash hit like a recoil. Hargrove, the colonel-turned-VP who'd slapped Caldwell's back in Denver, now paced his oak-paneled office, cigar ash dusting memos stamped urgent prop controversy. Boeing's success had lit a fuse. Airlines clamored for retrofits, but so did whispers from the Army Air Corps in Dayton. Unreliable in combat, read a leaked memo from McCook Field, penned by a holdover from Caldwell's McCook days. A jealous major named Ellis, who'd once lost a promotion to Frank's variable pitch trials. Complex mechanisms fail under G-loads. Recommend fixed pitch for all pursuit ships. Caldwell returned to Hartford a hero in overalls, only to find his stable workshop barricaded by routine inspections. His team, those 3 draftsmen and the machinist Tom, huddled in a corner of the main bay, tools scattered like refugees. "Boss," Tom muttered, voice low under the clang of rivet guns. "They're pulling funding, saying Denver was a fluke, cold start, tailwind luck. Hargrove's got Curtiss reps in the boardroom right now, peddling their Fairchild props as battle-proven." Frank's jaw tightened, spectacles fogging from the shop's humid heat. He didn't rage, he measured. "Fluke, we've got theodolite logs, torque curves, show me the data that says otherwise." But data was the first casualty. Overnight, his whirl stand, that earthquake machine in the stable, vanished into storage. Prototypes fresh from Denver's Triumph sat in crates stamped recall, defective seals, though inspections showed nary a drip. Sabotage or skepticism's slow poison? The line blurred in the fog of factory politics. One dawn, as Caldwell arrived at 4 a.m. to reclaim his rig, he found it dismantled. Gears strewn like autopsy parts, oil reservoirs drained into coffee cans labeled hazmat. A note, scrawled on company letterhead, "Safety first, Frank, wouldn't want another McCook mishap." McCook, his old haunt, where a fixed-pitch test in 22 had grenaded, killing a rigger. Guilt by association. They fear what they can't control. But control isn't in the filing, it's in the proof. I'll rebuild it. Twice as strong. With numbers they can't forge. He doubled down, not with defiance, but with diligence. A siege of data that would bury the doubters in avalanches of evidence. No more stables. He commandeered a disused corner of the test bay. A 40 by 40 alcove reeking of varnish and victory. By week's end, a new whirl stand rose. Beefier armature, sourced from scrapped locomotive parts. Variable speed drive hitting 2,800 RPM without a whimper. His team swelled. Helen Braddock, the factory inspector with a hawk's eye for flaws, volunteered off hours. Young Eddie Rickenbacker Jr., the ace's son interning for summer credits, brought boyish vigor and a slide rule sharp as a bayonet. Tests became a ritual of redemption. Day 1. Baseline spins at sea level. Props course pitching to 18 degrees, torque peaking at 1,200 foot-pounds. No cavitation. Efficiency holding 85%. Night 2. Simulated altitude in a vacuum chamber. Air bled to 5 psi. Blades feathering to 75 degrees for glide. The hum rose to a banshee wail, then steadied. RPM governed to 2,400. Vibrations damped to 0.02 inches. Caldwell logged it all in ledgers bound in leather, columns of figures marching like infantry. Pitch shift time 1.8 sec. Thrust vector stability 98.7%. Failure mode probability 0.001%. But data alone was a whisper in a hurricane. The war of opinions raged in smoke-filled lounges and Senate hearings. Curtis Wright struck first, a full-page ad in Aero Digest, April 33 issue, touting their unbreakable fixed pitch, bulletproof against experimental frippery that endangers pilots. Subtle, but the barb landed. Frippery, as if Caldwell's genius were a parlor trick. Their spies, polite consultants lunching with Hamilton execs, fed rumors. Hydraulics freeze at 9:40, leaks under 6G turns. One jam midair, and you've got a flying buzzsaw. Hargrove, caught in the crossfire, summoned Caldwell to the boardroom, a chamber paneled in mahogany, air thick with Havana haze. Seated around the oval, Meade, stone-faced, 2 Curtis suits in pinstripes, a bespectacled bean counter from United Aircraft's parent, Pratt & Whitney. No allies, save a stenographer scratching notes like claws on slate. Frank, Hargrove opened, voice oily as a leaking seal. Denver was impressive. But these gentlemen raise valid points. Complexity breeds catastrophe. Army's waffling on specs, says pursuit props need idiot-proof reliability. Curtis here's offering a partnership. Co-develop a hybrid. Fixed base your, adjustments optional. The Curtis lead, a slick operator named Vance with a Chicago accent like gravel, leaned forward. No offense, Caldwell, your brainiac toy's cute for airliners, but warbirds? One busted piston at 20,000 feet, and Uncle Sam sues. We've got 10,000 units in the field, 0 failures. Simple survives. Caldwell stood, unblinking, a sheaf of graphs under arm. He didn't plead, he presented, unfurling plots like battle flags on the table. Gentlemen, simplicity survived the Great War, flying 80 knots into machine gun fire. But 1933 demands more. Look here, at 10,000 feet, fixed pitch drops 35% efficiency. My governor holds 92%, climbs 1,400 FPM, and reliability 500 hours continuous run, no leaks. Data from Denver, cross-verified by NACA. Vance smirked, tapping a folder. Data's fine on the ground, pal, but pilots ain't slide rules. Heard your McCook trial sheared a hub, nearly decapitated a ground ape. The room tensed, cigar smoke curling like accusations. Helen Braddock, eavesdropping from the hall, her inspector's badge a shield, clenched fists. She'd seen the logs. That shear was a sabotaged batch of Curtis steel, but proof was ash. Caldwell's voice cut clean. That hub was fixed pitch, Mr. Vance. Installed by McCook's finest, your alumni, I believe. My design? Tested to 10G bursts. No shear, no decapitations, only progress. Meade cleared his throat, the room's decider. Enough. Frank, you've got till June. Full production mock-up. Impress the core brass at Wright Field. Fail, we hybridize, or shelf it. Dismissed, Caldwell stormed the shops, data burning in his veins. Sabotage escalated. A misrouted shipment of high-grade aluminum diverted to Curtis. Anonymous tips to the Hartford Courant. Prop pioneer plays with fire, hinting at safety probes. One night, as thunder rolled over the river, lightning illuminating rain-lashed windows, Caldwell found his office ransacked. Notebooks shredded, a prototype hub smashed with a hammer, claw marks fresh as betrayal. Helen, voice steady, edged with steel. Frank, it's not random. I caught a shadow, Vance's driver, slinking out the side door. They're scared. Boeing's converting the fleet. Sikorsky wants demos for his S-42 Clippers. Your props eating their lunch. He rises, debris cascading from his sleeves. Scared men fight dirty, Helen, but dirt washes off. We rebuild. Call the team, midnight muster. We're not defending, we're advancing. The counteroffensive was a masterclass in persistence. Caldwell transformed the alcove to a fortress of facts. Walls papered in efficiency curves, floors cluttered with strain gauges and oscilloscopes borrowed from MIT alumni. Tests ran 24/7. Eddie Jr., manning the night shift, his youthful logs peppered with exclamations. 2,500 RPM, 0 flutter. It's alive. Helen, the inspector turned inquisitor, scoured suppliers for tainted lots, her dividers tracing metallurgical sins. Key battles. The overspeed trial, May 15th. Prop spun to 3,000 RPM, redline plus 25%, governor slamming pitch to fine in 1.2 seconds, averting disintegration. Data, vibration amplitude 0.01 in. Recovery time, 0.9 sec. Then the freeze chamber, props immersed in 50 degrees methanol, oil gelling to taffy. Yet the piston cycled, slow, deliberate, blades twisting like awakening serpents. Rivals countered with propaganda. A safety symposium at the Aeronautical Chamber of Commerce, June 1st. Curtis footing the bill. Speakers droned, variable pitch, a mechanic's nightmare mid-mission. Vance took the podium, slides flickering. Crash photos from a French variable test in 29. Twisted wreckage. Caption, complexity killed. The hall, packed with corps officers in airline suits, murmured assent. Caldwell, invited as a courtesy, sat rear row, fists balled. His rebuttal? Not words, but witnesses. Post-symposium, in a rented hotel ballroom, he staged the Hartford demonstration. A live whirl stand under spotlights, props humming to life. Guests, 50 strong, including Major Carl Spotts, that rising star from Selfridge Field, watched blades shift on cue, torque needles steady as a heartbeat. Feel it, Caldwell urged, handing earpieces to pipe the whir directly. Spotts, pipe clenched, nodded slow. Like a symphony, Frank. No chaos. The tide nudged but didn't turn. June deadline loomed. Production stalled at prototypes. Desperation birthed innovation. Late nights bled into the summer solstice, the air thick with ozone from arc welders. Caldwell paced the bay, sketching feverishly. What if the governor anticipated? Not reactive, proactive. Centrifugal weight sensing RPM before overspeed, oil pre-pressured via flyball linkage. It crystallized at 3 a.m. July 4th. Fireworks cracking over the river like celebratory gunfire. Helen handed him coffee, black as resolve. Eddie Jr. sketched the linkage. The hydromatic governor, evolution of his dream. No mere piston, a self-contained brain in the hub. Engine oil, pressurized to 400 psi, drove a variable displacement pump, slave to RPM via opposed flyweights. Coarse for torque, fine for speed, feather for failure. All automatic, seamless. A servo valve, needle-thin, modulated flow with surgical grace. Damping orifices prevented hunting, that oscillatory death rattle of lesser designs. Caldwell, whispering to the drawing, as if to a child, "There, born in fire, you'll turn doubt to dust." Bench tests dawned July 5th. The hub, milled from billet steel weighing 45 pounds, mounted on the stand. Switch thrown, whir to roar, flyweights fanning like propellers of their own. RPM climbed 2,000, 2,400, pitch shifting not with a jolt but a sigh. Oil whispering through channels. Efficiency 94% at cruise. Feather test, simulated engine cut, blades aligning in 3.2 seconds, drag slashed 80%, glide ratio soaring to 18:1. Word leaked, deliberately. A courier dashed the blueprint to right field, Spotts' endorsement clipped aboard. Hydromatic merits immediate trial. Edge and climb could win wars. Curtis howled, Vance wiring Meade. Overreach, untested voodoo. But the core bit. A P-26P shooter earmarked for August mounting. As fireworks faded to embers over Hartford, Caldwell stood on the factory roof, rain slicked, watching the Connecticut flow black and unyielding. The hydromatic wasn't just metal and oil, it was his manifesto. Precision persists. Complexity conquered, commands. But command invited greater foes. Whispers from Berlin grew. German attaches in Washington, poring over patent gazettes, marking Caldwell F.W. hydromatic governor with red ink. Unmöglich? No longer. And across the Atlantic storm clouds gathered, not of weather, but war. The hydromatic governor pulsed with promise, a heartbeat in the machine. But as patents shipped to Dayton, darker eyes turned east, toward a rearming Reich, where engineers dissected American dreams in secret vaults. Caldwell's data had won the day, but the real test loomed. Glory's glare, and the world's cold shoulder. The hydromatic governor didn't just spin, it sang. In the sweltering forges of Hartford, Frank Caldwell's creation had transcended prototype to prophecy. A mechanical oracle that whispered efficiency into the wind, turning the chaotic ballet of flight into a governed waltz. By August 1933, the Wright field trials had come and gone like a summer squall, fierce, fleeting, transformative. The P-26P shooter, that spindly pursuit ship with her fixed-pitch legacy, had donned Caldwell's prop like a suit of armor forged in oil and aluminum. Test pilot Captain Claire Chenault, later the Flying Tigers then, father, had strapped in, throttled to the firewall, and rocketed skyward over Ohio's cornfields. Climb rate, 1,800 feet per minute at 8,000 feet, a 40% leap over stock. Dive recovery, blades feathering in 2.1 seconds. No compressor stall, no heart-stopping shudder. Chenault's logbook entries scrawled in the cockpit's dim glow. Caldwell's brain in the nose, reads the air like a book. Pursuit edge, immense. The core brass, those starched sentinels of skepticism, stamped approval. Adopt for all P-36 variants. Orders trickled in, first dozens, then hundreds, from Sikorsky for his Panama Clippers, from Martin for B-10 bombers. Hamilton Standards lines hummed, stamping hubs at 50 a day. The clang of drop forges a metronome of momentum. But momentum, in the peacetime parade of American innovation, was a fickle march. Engineering brilliance met institutional arrogance at every turnpike. Patent examiners nitpicking overly complex claims, airlines haggling for proven fixed-pitch discounts, and the National Academy of Sciences dismissing variables as gadgetry unfit for the common carrier. The world, fat on isolationism's complacency, preferred its heroes in leather helmets, barnstormers looping the loop at county fairs, not bespectacled tinkerers greasing governors in backshop bays. Caldwell's triumph was a footnote in Flight magazine, buried beside ads for Goodyear blimps. The prop that thinks, but who cares? Yet fate, that draftsman with a capricious hand, sketched a golden line. The Collier Trophy, aviation's Nobel endowed by the scion of Standard Oil, awarded annually since 1911 for the greatest achievement in aeronautics or astronautics in America, with respect to improving the performance, safety, and efficiency of air or space vehicles. Past laureates, the Wright brothers for powered flight, Lockheed for the Vegas speed records. In 1933, the contest loomed like Olympus. Nominations due September 1st, ceremony at the Willard Hotel in Washington, D.C., November 10th. Meade, Hamilton's CEO, saw the prize not as bauble but battering ram, a shield against Curtis's barbs, a siren call to the indifferent. Meade booming, cigar clamped like a throttle. Frank, you've got the core buzzing, Sikorsky salivating, but the Collier? That's the brass ring. Wins it and Curtis eats crow, publicly. Loses, well, we pivot to hybrids like Vance wants. Hargrove nods, eyes darting. Nominations ironclad. Denver data, right field logs, NACO wind tunnel curves. Efficiency jump, 25% across the board. Safety? 0 incidents in 2,000 hours. It's a lock. Caldwell adjusts his spectacles, voice even as a leveled altimeter. It's not about the trophy, George. It's validation. Airlines'll retrofit fleets. Corps'll spec it standard. But the judges, academics mostly, they'll want poetry with their physics. Meade leans forward, eyes gleaming like polished nacelles. Then give 'em both. Helen, your inspector's touch, draft the narrative. Make it sing, from ridicule to revelation. Frank, you testify. Spots'll vouch, he's on the committee now. The campaign launched like a carrier cat, meticulous, relentless. Helen Braddock, that steel-spined sentinel of the shops, traded her micrometer for an Underwood typewriter in the alcove's corner. Her prose wove technical tapestry with human thread. In the shadow of shattered blades and stalled dreams, one engineer's faith in fluid dynamics birthed a propeller that doesn't just turn, it adapts, anticipates, ascends. Pages flew, appendices bulging with oscillograph traces, efficiency matrices plotted in India ink, testimonials from Allen in Denver. It climbed the impossible. Chenault, edge in the envelope. Caldwell's contribution was the soul. A personal affidavit, penned by lamplight in his Wethersfield bungalow, inkwell shared with his wife's embroidery silks. I built this not for glory, but for the pilot who trusts his mount at 300 miles per hour. The hydromatic is no contraption. It's covenant between man, machine, and the merciless sky. He mailed it September 1st, pulse steady, though his hands bore the calluses of 1,000 tweaks. Washington awaited like a gauntlet. October's chill nipped the Potomac as nominees converged. Boeing for the 247's monocoque magic, Sperry for gyro-stabilized autopilots, even Curtis, cheeky for refined, fixed-pitch laminate. The hearings unfolded in the Commerce Department's marbled halls, panels of gray eminences. Orville Wright himself, frail but fierce, NACA's Dr. George Lewis, slide rule ever at hand, Major Spots, pipe smoke wreathing his mustache like a halo. Caldwell testified October 15th, 10 a.m. sharp. The chamber, oak-paneled, air-heavy with aftershave and authority. He entered in his one good suit, wool from Brooks Brothers, tie knotted like a control cable, flanked by Meade and Helen, her notebook a shield. The committee, 12 strong, faces carved from Mount Rushmore's rejects, stern brows, folded arms. Dr. Lewis opened, voice dry as desiccated data. Mr. Caldwell, your hydromatic claims adaptive superiority, yet complexity invites cascade failure, a clogged orifice, and the pilot plummets. How do you mitigate? Frank rose, no tremor, unfurling a cutaway model, hub dissected on velvet, gears glinting like dental work. Doctor, mitigation is in the margins. Triple redundant seals, oil filtration to 5 microns. Tested into 60-degree cryochambers, 120 Fair ovens. Failure rate? 1 in 10,000 cycles, less than a fixed-pitch fatigue snap. He demonstrated. A hand crank spinning flyweights, piston hissing pitch shift, blades, mock wooden, twisting in symphony. Murmurs rippled, approval's undercurrent. Orville Wright, eyes milky but keen, leaned forward. In 1903, we fought the props pitch with our souls. Yours fights it with oil. Elegant, but wartime. Vibration, debris, does it hold? Caldwell met the gaze of aviation's genesis. Mr. Wright, it was built for war's whisper, even in peace. Gunfire tests at Aberdeen, 50 cal bursts at 50 yards, no binding. And vibration? Damped to 0.005 inches at 2600 RPM. It doesn't just hold, it heals the airframe's stress. Spots interjected, gruff benediction. Gentlemen, I flew it. At 15,000 feet over Wright, it outclimbed a squadron of P-12s. This isn't gadgetry, it's doctrine. The next war won't be won with wood and wire. Curtis's Vance, slouched rearward, lobbed his grenade. Poetic major, but production? Hamilton's at 100 units monthly, rushed. One leak in the field, and you've got lawsuits, not laurels. Fixed pitch, simple, scalable, safe. Helen's pen scratched fury, but Caldwell parried with poise. Mr. Vance, scalability is in the system. Modular hubs, field strippable in 20 minutes. And safety? Denver saved Boeing's line. Wright Field saved the core budget. Your fixed pitch scales to mediocrity. Mine, to mastery. The panel recessed, whispers trailing like contrails. Days blurred into nail-biting limbo. Telegrams from Hartford, shops idle, await Collier word. Helen pacing the Willard lobby, her heels clicking like anxious Morse. Caldwell walked them all alone. Lincoln's shadow long in the autumn slant, pondering what if. Not failure, but the void after victory. Trophies gather dust. Skies demand flight. November 10th dawned crisp, the Willard ballroom aglow with crystal chandeliers and brass buttons. 500 strong. Aviators in mess dress, congressmen with corgis on leashes, reporters scribbling for the Post. The podium. Eagle-crested, spotlit. President Roosevelt's proxy, Commerce Secretary Daniel Roper, cleared his throat, voice booming over the tinkle of champagne flutes. Roper. In an age of marvels, one achievement stands paramount. The Hamilton Standard Hydromatic Propeller by Frank W. Caldwell, for revolutionizing aerial efficiency, safety, and performance, conferring the 1933 Collier Trophy. Applause thundered, sustained, seismic. Caldwell ascended, metal heavy as absolution around his neck, gold disc etched with Daedalus's wings. Meade pumped his hand, Spots clapped his back, even Vance, cornered, muttered, "Well played, Frank." Flashbulbs popped like gunfire, New York Times wire crackling. Engineer turns prop into brain, Collier to unsung hero. They cheer the medal, not the math, but math endures. This is for the pilots who'll never know my name. The afterglow was a gilded haze. Banquets blurred. Waldorf in New York, where J.P. Morgan toasted to the propeller that propels progress. Hartford Civic Hall, brass band blaring, Yankee Doodle. 800 workers cheering as Caldwell handed out engraved hub replicas, miniature governors, spinning on desk stands. Orders surged. Boeing 100 units, Army 500 for P-40 trials. Aero Digest crowned him prophet of pitch. MIT invited lectures, his alma mater's hall packed with wide-eyed cadets. But glory's echo hollowed swiftly. Institutional arrogance reared like a stall. The Academy's post-Collier report, December 33, praised the hydromatic, laudable advance, then hedged. Yet for commercial ops, fixed pitch suffices. Variables, cost prohibitive, maintenance heavy. Airlines balked. TWA's boss wired, "Trophy's fine, Frank, but our mechanics ain't PhDs. Stick to simple." Even the Corps, Spots' advocacy notwithstanding, budgeted conservatively. Phase in over 5 years, test fixed first. Curtis didn't slink, they struck back sly. January 34, a comparative study in Western flying funded by Buffalo Bucks, charts cherry-picked, showing hydromatics prone to oil starvation in prolonged dives. Vance testified before a House subcommittee on aviation R&D. Voice honeyed venom. Caldwell's win? Flash in the pan. Our fixed pitch, the anvil of reliability. Why risk wings on whims? Smears seeped. Anonymous aviation columns. Collier's complex, beauty or beast, citing industry sources on creeping failures in Sikorsky installs. Helen traced one to a Curtiss plant rat, but proof evaporated like exhaust. Caldwell weathered it in the bay, metal tucked in a drawer beside his slide rule. Doubled production. Lines now 200 hubs weekly, night shifts under arc lights, the hiss of hydraulic presses a lullaby. He innovated incrementally, superfine filters for desert dust, thermal compensators for tropic climes, each tweak logged in ledgers that grew thick as war novels. Eddie Jr., now a full-time draftsman, idolized him. Boss, you're dataless reborn. They mock 'cause they can't match. But mockery's monotony wore grooves. One eve, February 34, rain sheeting the bungalow windows like tears unshed, Caldwell confided in Helen over coffee, black, bitter. She'd become confidant, her inspector's eye now on his spirit's seams. Frank, the collier's yours, undeniable, yet you pace like a caged merlin. What's the ghost? Vance, the specs? He sips, steam curling like doubts. Not them. It's the silence, Helen. We saved Boeing's bacon, armed the Corps' future. But the world? Indifferent. Props don't make headlines, pilots do, and pilots fly fixed-pitch dreams. She sets her cup down, clink emphatic. Indifference is the price of precision. You didn't build for cheers, you built for climb. Remember Denver, Alan's grin when she crested the ridge. That's your echo. He nods, faint smile cracking the mask. Aye, but echoes fade. What's next? The Navy wants demos for Devastators. Torpedo runs off Norfolk. Salt air, saltwater corrosion, more data to drown the doubters. Yet even as he spoke, the world's indifference cracked, subtly, sinisterly. Berlin, March 1934. In the vaulted archives of the Technische Hochschule, under the Reich's reawakening gaze, a bespectacled Abwehr officer, Hauptmann Erich von Kleist, pored over smuggled Collier clippings. Beside them, Caldwell's patents, filched via a New York consulate trade exchange. Marginalia in his precise hand, Amerikanische Konstanzgeschwindigkeit, Hydromatisches System, Steigungsrate plus 40%, für Jäger, entscheidend. Von Kleist, ex-Luftstreitkräfte from the Kaiser's Folly, new props as a pilot knows peril. Germany's Versailles shackles chafed, fixed-pitch junkers, underpowered Heinkels, skies denied since 18, but whispers stirred. Goering's bluster, Hitler's blueprints for 1,000-plane fleet. Von Kleist's memo, stamped urgent to the Air Ministry, U.S. variable pitch breakthrough, Caldwell's governor, reverse engineer immediately, climb superiority could negate French numbers, rearmament phase 1, procure samples via neutral channels. Across the Atlantic, the first gusts of war's whisper brushed American shores. April 34, Spots, promoted to lieutenant colonel, lunched with Caldwell at the Army-Navy Club, club chairs creaking, martinis sweating beads. Frank, he confided, voice low over the clink of ice, Berlin's buying, not our props yet, but scouts in Detroit sniffing patents, and Hitler's speeches, skies for the fatherland. Your hydromatic might be the moat we need. Caldwell forked his steak, unmoved. Carl, it's a tool, not a talisman. But if war comes, it'll turn the tide, or bury the fools who ignored it. That night, in the bungalow's study, radio crackling static from a Berlin broadcast, Goebbels' rhetoric thundering, the Luftwaffe rises, wings of steel for the new Reich. Caldwell stared at his metal, dust gathering like neglect. Indifference ends when the sirens wail, he thought, the hum of a distant test prop echoing in his mind like a warning knell. The Collier gleamed, but its light barely pierced the peacetime fog. As Berlin's forges fired and Goering's eagles wheeled, Caldwell's genius slumbered in crates, awaiting the RAF's desperate grasp, across a channel churning with fate's first ripples. Europe burned. It was the summer of the swastika's shadow, when Adolf Hitler's iron dream clawed across the Low Countries, swallowing Holland in a 3-day blitz, crushing Belgium's forts like eggshells, and trapping 338,000 Tommies at Dunkirk in a miracle of small boats and smaller prayers. France fell in 6 weeks, Paris a ghost under the tricolor of surrender, the Maginot Line a monument to yesterday's arrogance. Now, the Reich's gaze fixed on Albion, Operation Sea Lion, the invasion plan sketched in Goering's opulent Karen Hall, promising 25,500 barges across the Channel by September's equinox. But air supremacy was the anvil. Without it, no beachhead, no foothold. The Luftwaffe, that gleaming horde of Messerschmitts and Dorniers, would hammer the RAF into dust, or so Berlin believed. Britain teetered on the precipice. Prime Minister Winston Churchill, bulldog jowls set in the cabinet war room's subterranean gloom, growled his vow. We shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds, we shall never surrender. But words were wind, wings were salvation. The Royal Air Force, outnumbered 10-1 in fighters, pilots green as spring grass, clung to its lifeline. The Supermarine Spitfire, that elliptical elegant thoroughbred with her 8-303 Brownings and Rolls-Royce Merlin singing at 3,000 horsepower. Yet for all her grace, the Spitfire had a fatal stutter. Her fixed-pitch, two-bladed propellers, relics of peacetime thrift, choked on the climb. Tuned for level speed, 300 knots at 15,000 feet, they cavitated in the vertical, RPM spiking to redline, climb rates limping at 2,400 feet per minute. Messerschmitt Bf-109s, with their Daimler-Benz Fury and variable pitch tricks cribbed from pre-war patents, pounced from above like eagles on larks. In Fighter Command's bunkers at Bentley Priory, Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding, stuffy to his men, the savior of the realm, pored over kill ratios like a priest over runes. Losses mounted. 300 Spitfires and Hurricanes gone by mid-July, pilots bailing into the drink, their Mae Wests blooming orange against the gray. We need height, Dowding rasped in a midnight briefing, maps pinned with red Luftwaffe incursions. Their 109s turn energy into altitude like demons. Ours, we chase shadows. The fix? Desperation's diplomacy. Cables snapped across the Atlantic to Washington. Lend-Lease whispers, back channel please. American propellers. Variable, now. Enter the ghost from Hartford, Frank W. Caldwell's hydromatic governor, that 1933 marvel mothballed in U.S. isolationism's attic. Since the Collier's hollow gone, production had idled. Hamilton Standard churning a few hundred for export airliners, the Army Air Corps dithering on specs for their P-40 Warhawks. But Britain's blaze lit the fuse. In June 40, as panzers rolled to the Somme, the RAF's technical branch, led by a chain-smoking squadron leader named Geoffrey de Havilland, dispatched a Vickers Wellington across the pond, cargo hold stuffed with Spitfire nacelles. Destination, East Hartford, where Caldwell's bays still hummed with half-forgotten prototypes. Caldwell, now 51, silver threading his temples like contrails, received the wire in his bungalow's breakfast nook, bacon grease congealing on his plate, the crackle of BBC reports from a Philco radio. Enemy bombers over Scapa-Flow. He didn't flinch. Helen, he called to his wife, voice steady as a torque wrench. Dust off the blueprints, the war's found us. Helen Braddock. No, Helen Caldwell now, wed in a quiet 36 ceremony amid the stable's varnish scent, nodded, her inspector's instincts flaring. She'd risen to chief quality control, her eye catching flaws that doomed lesser designs. Together, they rallied the old team. Eddie Rickenbacker Jr., now a foreman with his father's fire, Tom the machinist, grizzled but game, Major Spots's memos from D.C., urging, full throttle Frank, Lend-Lease green light, ship 500 units yesterday. The retrofit was a race against Reich's rhythm. Spitfire hubs arrived swaddled in oiled canvas, Merlin crankshafts yawning like hungry maws. Hamilton's lines, dormant since Munich's appeasement, roared awake. Drop forges thudding 24-hour shifts, oil reservoirs pressure tested to 500 psi, flyweights balanced to micrograms. Caldwell oversaw personally, sleeves rolled, spectacles fogged by the heat haze rising from spinning test rigs. Feathers smooth, he'd murmur, watching blades align in 2.8 seconds. Drag slashed, Merlin's song preserved for the glide home. But doubts gnawed, salt spray over Dover, G-forces in a 400-knot dive, one flaw, and a squadron's doom. The first batch, 53-bladed hydromatics, aluminum forged like Excalibur, winged back via convoy, dodging U-boats in the mid-Atlantic murk. Landfall, Liverpool docks, July 28th, crates manhandled to Castle Bromwich's Supermarine factory amid the Midlands industrial pall. There, in hangars reeking of dope and despair, fitters sweated under arc lamps, props torqued to 200 foot-pounds, governors bled of air bubbles, test spins whirring to 3,000 RPM without a quiver. The RF's chosen, number 92 Squadron, the Bleeding Yanks for their Yankee Doodle swagger, based at Manston, Kent's frontline foxhole, craters pocking the turf from early raids. Their CO, squadron leader, Johnny Johnson, ace in waiting with a cool eye and a cooler head. But the test pilot, the soul of the trial, was Desmond Cook, 26, Oxford blue blood with a fighter's fire, fresh from a hurricane tour over Dunkirk, where he'd nursed a riddled kite home on one engine. Tall, lantern-jawed, with a mustache trimmed like a bayonet, Cook embodied the RAF's stiff upper lip, yet beneath a poet's pulse, scribbling verse in his logbook between scrambles. Cook's voice in the cockpit recorder, clipped Oxford drawl laced with anticipation. Control, this is Cook. High dramatic trial, solo circuit. Hearts pounding like a bass drum, feels like arming a new girl. Tower crackle. Roger Cook, cleared for takeoff, runway 05. Winds light, visibility unlimited. Mind the barrage balloons over Ramsgate. Throttle quadrant eased forward. The hydromatic engages, coarse pitch biting turf with a growl, no overspeed whine, acceleration pinning Cook to his seat like a lover's embrace. 80 knots, 100, tail up at 70, airborne at 85, cleaner than a knife through silk. Gear up with a thump, nose into the climb. Merlin at 2,900 RPM, supercharger whining sweet. The needle spins, 2,800 feet per minute, 3,000, holding 2,900 at 5,000 feet, air thinning to crystal. Cook's gloved hand hovers over the pitch lever, obsolete now, a vestige, then pulls back instinctively. The governor sighs, blades fine-pitching seamless, RPM steady at 2,600, speed building to 320 knots level without a burble. He banks east, toward the Dover Whites, channel glittering like shattered glass. A test dive, nose down to 300 knots, then haul back. G's crushing, but the prop recovers, pitch coarsening in 1.9 seconds, no propeller torque roll threatening the turn. Cook laughs, rare and raw, into the oxy mask. By Jove, it's alive. Reads my wrist like a mind. Circuit complete. Base leg at 1,500, props feathering fine for the whisper descent, touching grass at 75 knots. Roll out a mere 400 yards. Canopy popped, Cook vaults down, oxygen flush in his cheeks, crew mobbing him with grins and goloises. Johnson clasps his shoulder, eyes alight. Des, talk to me. Climb, speed. Cook peels off his helmet, hair matted, voice breathless with revelation. Johnny, it's not a prop, it's a bloody oracle. Climb to Angels 15 in under 5 minutes. No flutter, no hunt. The 109s will taste our tailpipes now. Word rocketed up the chain. Dowding's Priory Ops Room, where dwarfs plotted incursions on illuminated tables, paused mid-plot. Hydromatics work, the signal read. Squadron trials immediate. By week's end, 92 squadrons, 12 spits wore Caldwell's crowns, hubs gleaming under sun-polished spinners. Training flights became ballets of dominance. Formation climbs to 20,000 feet, Merlins sipping fuel at governed efficiency, pilots whooping over RT, bandits at 3 o'clock climbing to engage. But glory's gleam masked the grind. August's Adlerangriff, Eagle attack, unleashed hell. 1,000 bombers daily, Stukas screaming earthward over airfields, Manston's dispersals craters from 500-pounders. Cook's first blood, August 8th, dawn patrol over the strait. Radar ping. 30-plus bandits, Do-17s shepherded by 109 escorts at 12,000 feet. Scramble klaxon wails, spits thundering aloft, hydromatics gobbling altitude, squadron cresting 18,000 in 4 minutes flat. Cook, Yellow 2 in the V, spots the trap, 109s diving from the sun, wings winking cannon fire. Break right, tall boy leading. His stick yanks, spit heeling into a 7G turn, prop torque neutralized by the governor's whisper, Merlin pulling like a thoroughbred. Tracers zip past, stitching canopy glass, but Cook's height edge bites. A snap roll reversal, .303s chattering 400 yards, stitching 109s cowling. The Messerschmitt smokes, pilot bailing into the drink, splash 1. RT frenzy, Yellow 2 confirmed kill. Johnson, good show Des, regroup Angels 20. The squadron disengages upward, hydromatics holding RPM sweet, outclimbing the escorts by 500 feet per minute. Below, the Dorniers bomb harmlessly, flak blooming black over shipping lanes. Cook levels off, pulse hammering, scanning the blue for stragglers. It's the prop, he thinks, sweat beading under his goggles. Not magic, math. Caldwell's math, turning our climb into a cliff. The impossible proved itself sortie by sortie. August 13th, Eagle Day, saw 1485 German sorties, RAF countering with 700. 92 squadrons log, 5 kills, 2 damaged, no losses. Cook's verse that night, scratched in a blackout shielded tent. Aluminum inches, oil's quiet command. Lift us from Earth, stay Death's grasping hand. Doubting cabled de Havilland. Propellers transform doctrine. Accelerate production, 1,000 monthly. Supermarines lines fevered. Women in overalls, hands raw from filing, hubs spinning on test benches till dawn's gray light. Yet peril prowled. Sabotage shadows from 33 lingered. Now, whispers of Luftwaffe spies in Liverpool, tampering crates. One spit, on a ferry flight to Biggin Hill, suffered a governor jam at 10,000 feet. Pitch, frozen course. Merlin over-revving to 3,200, blades screaming like banshees. The pilot, Trooper Ellis, a farm boy from Devon, wrestled her down, feathering manually, wheels kissing turf with yards to spare. Inquiry, a sabotaged flyweight filed thin as a whisper. Cook, debriefing in the dispersal hut, slammed his fist on the trestle. Bloody fifth columnists, but she held, thanks to Frank's redundance. Caldwell learned via transatlantic wire, spots relay from the War Department. RAF trials exceed projections. One anomaly, investigate seals. In Hartford, he pored over returned hubs, dimpled by salt but unbreached. Helen's dividers traced the flaw, a supplier's cheap alloy, pre-war corner cutting. Fixable, she declared, voice iron. Triple-spec the weights. Production pivoted, new forges, MIT metallurgists on loan, output doubling to 2,000 by September's cusp. Across the channel, von Kleist's Abwehr vault grew frantic. Captured spit debris from a channel splashdown, prop hub mangled but legible, yielded stamps. Hamilton Stead Hydromatic, Pat, 2,033,456. Goering raged in his train car HQ. How do these island curs climb like falcons? Steal the design, now. Spies swarmed neutral ports, Lisbon, Dublin. Blueprints bartered for gold, but reverse engineering faltered. German VARs crude VDM air screws lagged, 4-second shifts, hunting in turns. The Bf-109's edge dulled, pilots radioed despair. Spitfires above us, always above. Cook's squadron became Legend's forge. August 18th, the hardest day. Luftwaffe hurled 1,100 sorties at Fighter Command's 12 group. 92 tangled over Croydon, 109 swarming like hornets. Cook, wingman to Johnson, nursed a hold wing, glycol steaming, but the hydromatic held. Constant speed in the deck run, evading flak bursts that shredded 3 Dorniers trailing. Splash 2, shared with Green 4. Post-sortie in the ops van's fug of tea and tobacco, Johnson raised a pint. To Caldwell, unknown Yank, but our bloody guardian. Cook nodded, foam mustache quirking. Guardian? More like Godfather. Felt it today, dove to 50 feet, pulled up vertical. Prop didn't flinch. We own the altitude now. By month's end, the tide's inflection. RAF losses 295 aircraft, Luftwaffe 641. Dowding's few held, Hydromatics the invisible sword. Cook's final trial, unofficial, a rogue hop over the white cliffs, pushed the envelope. Full power climb to 25,000 feet, Merlin at governed bliss time 7 minutes 42 seconds. Level at 350 knots, then a feathering drill. Simulated engine cut, blades aligning parallel, drag nil, glide eternal. He circled Dover, waves far below, a single tear tracing his cheek under the oxygen mask. For what we fight, he whispered to the altimeter. Not land, but lift. Back at Manston, debrief with Group Captain Lee Mallory, 12 groups iron-fisted overseer. Cook, your spit's a mutant. Climbs like a rocket. Rest of the wings fixed pitch, we're bleeding height. Scale it? Desmond straightened, voice resonant as evensong. Sir, it's not the spit, it's the prop. Caldwell's oil and gears. Give us all hydromatics, and the Jerry's chase ghosts. Lee Mallory's eyes narrowed, then softened. Rare thaw. Consider it done. Washington cables 5,000 en route, but this stays need to know. Goering mustn't sniff the secret. As September's leaves turned amber, the battle's pivot creaked. Raids shifted to London, the Blitz's firebomb ballet, buying fighter command breath. Cook's squadron, now fully tooled, patrolled the Thames estuary, intercepts turning from desperation to dominance. One dusk, as 109s probed the radar gaps, 92 climbed to meet them. 22,000 feet in 6 minutes, positions reversed. Kills mounted, Cook's tally to 7, each a testament to inches of aluminum and the quiet pulse of oil-driven genius. In Hartford, Caldwell received the RAF's terse thanks. Your propellers turning the sky. Delivery's critical. He stood in the bay, rain sheeting the windows like channel squalls, a test hub spinning flawless in the stand. They fly on my faith, he thought, the hum a hymn. And faith, it seems, feathers the storm, but storms deepened. As Eagle attack ebbed to strategic bombing, America's slumber stirred. Roosevelt's arsenal of democracy speeches, Lend-Lease formalized. Spots wired. Frank, Britain's breathing because of you. Now the Corps wants 10,000 for our birds. War's whispers a roar. Desmond Cook banked toward the horizon, the channel a silver scar below. In that moment, as the hydromatic whispered its eternal vigilance, he keyed the RT one last time, voice carrying to his wingmen like a vow renewed. Cook said, "We can climb with them now." Pearl Harbor's thunder shattered America's slumber on December 7, 1941, a Sunday sneak attack that sank battleships in black smoke and crimson wakes, claiming 2,403 lives and igniting a nation's righteous rage. Overnight, isolationism's ivory tower crumbled. Factories that had idled on New Deal dribs became arsenals of democracy, churning steel hearts for the Sky War. Frank W. Caldwell's hydromatic propeller, once a peacetime pariah, then Britain's clandestine crutch, emerged from the shadows as the arsenal's unsung scepter. The RAF's triumph over the Channel had been the proof. Now, Uncle Sam claimed the patent as his own, mandating its fitment on every bird from P-40s to B-24s. Adopt or adapt, barked General Hap Arnold from the War Department's Oak Eyrie. Caldwell's governor wins wars, produce it yesterday. Adoption wasn't a decree, it was a deluge. By January 42, the Army Air Force's Material Command in Dayton wired Hamilton's standard 50,000 units by year's end, tripled the RAF's peak, scaled for a transatlantic armada. Boeing, Douglas, North American, the Big Three bombers, retooled nacelles overnight, blueprints faxed from Wright Field, bearing Caldwell's sigil like a coat of arms. The P-47 Thunderbolt, that Bristol-bred brute with her 850 calibers and radial roar, would wear the hydromatic as standard. The P-51 Mustang, slim as a stiletto, would climb on its whispers. Even the B-17 Flying Fortress, queen of the high-altitude hammer, traded fixed-pitch fossils for governed grace. Lend-Lease reversed, not just crates to Liverpool, but convoys homeward, laden with yank iron for the European theater's meat grinder. In Hartford, the explosion was biblical. Hamilton's footprint ballooned from 200 acres to 500, annexes sprouting like mushrooms after rain, Quonset huts for overflow spins, rail spurs snaking in with ingots from Pittsburgh. Shifts tripled. Dawn to dusk for the vets, graveyard for the greenhorns, high school grads, housewives, even POW Italians under guard, all hands to the flyweights. Production rocketed. 500 hubs weekly in February, 2,000 by April, 5,000 by D-Day's Eve. The clang of forges merged into a symphony of urgency, oil reservoirs bubbling like cauldrons, aluminum billets glowing cherry red under torches. Caldwell, 52 now, gaunt as a cliffside pine, roamed the lines like a foreman pharaoh, spectacles perpetually askew, clipboard a scepter etched with tolerances, pitch shift 2 sec, vibration 0.01 in. Oil pressure 350 to 450 psi. Helen Caldwell, his anchor and auditor, commanded quality from a glassed-in perch overlooking the bays. Dividers in one hand, stopwatch in the other, her once auburn hair streaked gray by the glare of blueprints. Precision or perish, she'd bark over the din, her voice cutting through the whir of test stands like a governor's command. Eddie Rickenbacker Jr., risen to plant superintendent, orchestrated the chaos. Conveyor belts ferrying half-hubs to spin checks, where rigs cycled 3,000 RPM for hours, data loggers spitting ticker-tape verdicts. Even Major Carl Spots, now a brigadier general jetting between D.C. and London, dropped in quarterly, pipe smoke trailing like contrails, slapping Caldwell's back. "Frank, your props are the 8th Air Force's spine. Thunderbolts outclimbing Focke-Wulfs. It's your math, not our muscle." The surge was seductive, a siren's song of scale. By mid-42, Hamilton shipped 100,000 units, enough to arm the Pacific Fleet's Catalinas and the ETO's marauding Mustangs. Airfields from Long Beach to Prestwick buzzed with retrofits. Mechanics in greasy fatigues torquing spinners, test hops roaring skyward, climb rates spiking 35% across the board. A Boeing pilot's log from Moses Lake, hydromatics a dream, felt the Fortress feather on cue at 25,000, glided 20 miles on one engine. Caldwell, savior in steel. Trade rags exalted, aviation ran spreads, propeller power, how one man's governor greases the war machine, graphs arcing like victory rolls. Caldwell demurred in interviews, voice professorial over the crackle of newsreel mics. It's not genius, It's governors, they listen when pilots can't. But frenzy forges flaws. Wartime's whip cracked without mercy. Rubber rationed for SEALs, steel diverted to tanks, skilled machinists siphoned to Lockheed's Vega plants. Corners cut like shrapnel. Suppliers shipping sub-spec alloys from shadow mills in Ohio. Flyweights cast in haste with microvoids like hidden mines. Inspection queues ballooned. Helen's team swelled to 200, chased phantoms, a batch of hubs weeping oil at 400 psi, another binding it at 20° Ferrari sims. Rush kills, she'd mutter, redlining manifests, but the manifests multiplied, 10,000 calls for June alone, War Production Board breathing down necks with quotas carved in granite. Mistakes multiplied like midges in the marsh. Early harbingers, a P-40 at Dale Mabry Field, Florida, March 42, prop overspeeding mid-climb, governor hunting in a 5 Hz buzz that shook the airframe like a maraca. Pilot ejected, chalking it to green grease monkey torque. Then, a B-25 Mitchell off Espiritu Santo, Pacific Theater. Feathering failed on engine out, blades windmilling drag that turned a survivable limp into a spiral dive. Crew bailed into kunai grass, unhurt but shaken. Inquiry pinned on contaminated oil from island drums. Whispers rippled back to Hartford. Memos from the Air Force's propulsion lab stamped urgent, recurring anomalies. Caldwell pored over them in his office, a Spartan cell off the bay, walls papered in failure fractals. Why? Seals? Flyballs? Or the scale itself, amplifying the infinitesimal? The flaw's midwife was no executive, no engineer, just a factory worker with eyes like a hawk and hands that remembered the soil. Maria Esposito, 28, Italian émigré from Bridgeport's Little Italy, widowed by a 39mm accident that claimed her husband to a dropped beam. She'd traded pasta pots for punch presses in 41, drawn by the $1-a-day wage and the war's grim promise. Build for victory, bury the grief. Slender as a spar, with calluses mapping her palms like constellation scars, Maria manned Line 7, hub assembly, where pistons mated to cams under the hiss of pneumatic drivers. No slide rule for her, just intuition honed on Nana's sewing machine, spotting threads that'd snag a seam. It started innocuous. July 10, 1942, a sweltering shift where the bay baked at 105 degrees, sweat sheeting faces like monsoon rain. Maria torqued a servo valve, standard 150 foot-pounds, when her wrench clunked odd, resistance spiking like a fever. The hub, serial H47892, gleamed innocent, aluminum hubcap polished to mirror, flyweights nested like eggs in a nest. But she paused, brow furrowing, and fetched her mirror. A shard of safety glass from the brake room angled into the gear train. There, a hairline fracture in the damping orifice, a pinhole flaw in the brass bushing, weeping hydraulic fluid like a stigmata. Dio mio, she whispered, crossing herself, the whir of the line fading to a tinnitus roar. Not a one-off. Her eye, trained on imperfection, swept the rack. A dozen more, faint as spiderwebs etched by rushed EDM. Electrical discharge machining, from a subcontractor in Waterbury, corners cut on electrode purity to hit quotas. One jam mid-flight, and the governor would hunt. Oscillations building to a harmonic scream, blades pitching wild, tearing the hub from the crank like a weed from wet earth. She didn't scream alarm. Maria was Method's daughter. Off shift, she smuggled the flawed hub, wrapped in her lunch rag, to the tool crib, cornering Eddie Jr. in the shadow of a lathe. Signor Eddie, her accent thick as marinara, eyes fierce under the brim of her cap. This kill. Not today, but tomorrow. Over ocean, no beach. See? She pried the rag, mirror-angled, fracture glinting under his flashlight. Eddie, sweat-beaded and bone-tired, knelt, Rickenbacker's legacy in his veins but fatigue in his slump. Christ, Maria. How many? She shrugged, shoulders knotted from the line. 20? More? I check all, but night come. You tell il professore, Mr. Caldwell, he fix, like God in pasta. Word rocketed upward like a flare. By 2 a.m. the plant's siren wailed, not air raid but halt, lines frozen mid-motion, 5,000 workers milling in stunned hush, the thud of presses silenced to an eerie echo. Caldwell, roused from a cot in his office, nights blurred into days, stormed the bay, hub in hand, Helen at his elbow with calipers snapping like accusations. Under floodlights they dissected, X-ray rig dragged from storage, beams piercing the brass to reveal voids like black stars, microcavitations from impure coolant propagating under spin loads. Catastrophic, Caldwell breathed, voice a scalpel's edge, as the ray film developed in a tray of acrid fixer. one resonance at 2800 RPM, and it chains, piston binds, oil surges, blades walk the pitch to destruction. A squadron's worth, thousands dead. Helen's face paled, dividers trembling as she measured the fracture's creep. 0.002 inches per cycle, exponential under war's whip. The reckoning was ruthless. Dawn broke blood-red over the river as Caldwell convened crisis. Meade from his mahogany bunker. Spots patched in from D.C. via scrambler phone. Static-laced growl. Frank, pull the batch. Ground suspect birds if you must. Arnold's roaring. Pacific carriers waiting on props. Quarantine clamped. 8,000 hubs impounded in a cordoned annex, guarded by MPs with M1s slung. Suppliers crucified, Waterbury's mill seized, foremen drafted to uniform, alloy audits mandated end-to-end. Maria, summoned to the office, a fish out of her oily sea, stood ramrod in her overalls, promoted on-site to roving inspector, badge pinned by Caldwell's hand. Signora Esposito, he said, eyes meeting hers like equals in equation. You saved more than steel today. Lives. The line's yours. Watch it like your own heart. She nodded, throat tight, Nana's rosary beads clicking in her pocket. For the boys, Signore. My Gino, he fly now over Africa. No widow like me. Remediation raged. New EDM dyes forged in-house. Coolant triple filtered. Every hub X-rayed at 50 per hour. Lines crawling to 1,000 daily. Quotas cursing from Washington. But the flaw's shadow lingered, a specter in the surge. Pilots grumbled in ready rooms. A P-51 at Farmingdale, August 42. Governor sluggish on takeoff, pitch lagging 3 seconds, nearly shearing the runway. Caldwell's curse, one quipped, chalking it to heat-warped oil. Then, whispers from the Aleutians. A B-26 Marauder, engine fire over Kiska, feathering stuttered. Blades half-cocked, drag yanking her into the drink. 3 crew lost to the Bering's chill. Survivor washed ashore, logbook sodden. Prop fought me, hunted like a demon. Hydromatic, more like hydromad. Reports trickled east like blood from a bandage. Air Force's teletype clattered in the propulsion lab. Incident 47B, mid-air failure P-47D, 10 miles W of Guadalcanal. Governor delamination at 18,000 feet. Pilot Captain J.R. Thack bailed, rescued. Cause orifice fatigue, per wreckage. Caldwell read it at midnight, alone in the bay, a single whirl stand humming mocking solace. My math? Fracturing? The hum taunted, a dirge for the doubt reborn. Helen found him there, coffee steaming in a tin mug, his shoulders bowed under the invisible yoke. Frank? It's not the design, it's the deluge. We fixed the brass, now chase the echoes. He looked up, spectacles reflecting the rig's blur. Echoes become eulogies, Helen. Thoc's alive, by luck. Next, a wing, plummeting. As autumn's chill nipped the forges, the first formal reports cascaded. A dossier from the 8th Air Force, forwarded via spots. 10 anomalies, 3 fatal, all tracing to governor anomalies in the rushed 42 surge. A Mustang over Dep, August 19th, D-Day's rehearsal gone grim. Prop walked pitch mid-turn, shearing into the wing route, spiraling into the channel. Pilot let E.J. Powers, 24 from Boise, lost with 2 wingmen in the bounce. The after-action, terse as a telegram. Hydromatic failure probable. Recommend full audit. Morale cracking. Pilots dubbing it Caldwell's Widowmaker. Caldwell crumpled the page, the hum now a howl in his ears. The adoption had armed the skies. Now, mistakes multiplied into mid-air ghosts, haunting the man who dared command the wind. The frenzy had birthed an empire of the air, but empires crack under their own weight. As the first mid-air failures etched their toll in teletypes and tide pools, Caldwell faced the forge's cruel truth. Perfection wasn't forged once, it demanded eternal vigil. But vigil faltered when disaster struck deepest over Schwinfort's steel heart. Schwinfort. The word alone evoked the Reich's industrial jugular. A ball-bearing citadel in Franconia's heart, where Kugelfischer and Fichtel and Sachs forged the spheres that spun the Führer's war machine. Cranks for Focke-Wulfs, turrets for Tigers, the very pivots of doom. By 1943, the Allies' combined bomber offensive hammered it twice, first in August's bloodbath, losing 60 bombers to 300 Luftwaffe fighters. Now, the second thrust, Operation Double Strike, hurled 291 B-17s from the 1st, 3rd, and 4th wings, escorted only to the coast by P-47s too short-legged for the deep penetration. It was Black Thursday's anvil, 650-mile round trip from England, skies devoid of Mustangs, the fortress's vaunted armor, and 1350 cals her sole bulwarks against a storm of 109s and FW-190s. The raid launched at dawn from fog-shrouded fields in East Anglia, Thorpe Abbott's Bassingbourn, crews nursing hangovers from last right's whiskey, bombardiers sinking Norden sights to the lead Pathfinder's G-box. Colonel Bud Peasley, 384th Bomb Group's CO, briefed in the Neeson Hut's chill. Penetration at 25,000, IP at 25 miles out. Boxes tight. Fortresses fly formation, not freelance. Props governed. No hero climbs. Irony that last. Caldwell's hydromatics, now de rigueur on every G-model B-17, were meant to knit the formation's fabric. Constant speed for tight echelons, feathering for the crippled to feather the drag. But over the North Sea, omens stirred. A lead ship's No. 3 engine coughing blue smoke, governor sluggish, pitch hunting in a low whine that telegraphed vulnerability. Lucky Lady, tail number 4230839, flew low squadron left wing, piloted by First Lieutenant Harlan Hank Ramsey 26, a Tulsa oilman's son with a gambler's grin and a wife's letters tucked in his flak vest. His crew, 10 souls stitched by fate, co-pilot ladder Ellis Bud Harlan, navigator fresh from radio school, ball turret gunner T-strength Joey DeMarco, Sicilian firebrand with a rosary looped on his gun sight, tail gunner St. Roy Tex McAllister, drawl thick as sorghum, eyes sharp as a hawk's. They'd nursed her through 18 missions, flak holes patched with spit and tape, engines tuned to purr under the hydromatic's watchful oil. Caldwell's clockwork, Ramsey joshed in pre-flight, slapping the nacelle. Keeps us ticking when Jerry's shooting. The ingress was a gauntlet of geometry. Over the Frisian chain, FW-190s pouncing from the deck, cannon stitching wings like tailors gone mad. Escorts peeled at Aachen, P-47s banking east with tanks dry, their pilots cursing the range. Good hunting, heavies, don't bunch up. The 17s pressed on, boxes of 18 tight as dice, superchargers whining at 25,000 feet where oxygen masks chafed and coffee froze in canteens. Ramsey keyed the interphone, voice steady over the thrum. Crew, visual on the Ruhr, smoke plumes at 3 o'clock. Stay frosty, IP in 10. Schwinfort materialized like a anvil's forge, factory sprawl ringed by flak towers, rail yards choked with gondolas. The lead box released at 15:55 hours, 1,000-pounders tumbling earthward in a steel rain, detonations blooming orange amid the machine shops. Lucky Lady followed. Norden slewing, bombs away clean, 6 M47s carving 1,200-foot craters, ball-bearing runs fracturing like shattered glass. Cheers crackled over the tube. Directs, boys, Kugelfischers kissing goodbye. But victory's echo drowned in ambush. From the east, Gallen's JG-2 and JG-26 materialized. 200 fighters, head-on passes like jousts of death. 109s slashed low, 20mm shells raking bellies, 190s boomed and zoomed from the sun, 30 cal replies, stitching futile contrails. The sky shredded, wings aflame, chutes blooming white against the gray, debris raining like confetti from hell. Ramsey's box hemorrhaged, high squadrons lead the invader, erupting in a fireball, 9 souls vaporized, low elements scattering as engines died. Lucky Lady caught the gale at 1620, a 190's burst hold number. 4 nacelle, radial sputtering, glycol hissing steam. Ramsey feathered instinctively, hydromatic sighing blades parallel, drag nullified, the fortress settling into her 3-engine lope at 180 knots. Good pitch, Caldwell, he muttered, banking to reform. But the wolf pack circled, a 109 pair, blue-nosed JG-26 aces, diving from 30,000. Tracers lanced, ball turrets stitching back, DeMarco's voice frantic. Bandit at red 6 closing fast, gimme lead. The hit struck like lightning, 20mm through the No. 2 prop hub, shell casing ricocheting into the governor's vitals. Oil pressure spiked, then plummeted. The hydromatic seized. Flyweights jammed in the fractured orifice, piston frozen mid-stroke, blades locked at 15 degrees. Course for climb, suicidal for cruise. RPM surged to 3,100, cyclone over-revving in a banshee scream, vibrations rattling the airframe like a maraca in God's fist. The fortress shuddered, yawing left, altitude bleeding 500 feet per minute as torque clawed the controls. Ramsey hauled yokes with Harlan, feet dancing rudders, sweat beating under masks. Prop 2's hunting, damn it, feather. But the lever, redundant manual, sludged against the bind, oil congealing in the shrapnel's scar. Interphone erupted, engines torching from top turret, crew, brace going down, from Harlan. DeMarco in the ball, glass sphere coffin fired blind. It's Caldwell's curse, jammed solid. Tex in the tail, citing the 109's victory roll, key to final curse. Tell my girl I loved her, skipper. At 18,000 feet, the wing root buckled, vibration harmonics cracking spars like dry twigs. Lucky Lady rolled inverted, the world inverting in Ramsey's canopy, earth skyward, clouds below. Chutes yanked, 10 blooms but chaos culled. DeMarco snagged in his turret, Harlan's line fouled on the tailwheel. 8 hit the silk over wheat fields near Bamberg, 109 strafing the descent like hounds on hares. Ramsey landed hard in a furrow, ankle snapping, MPs cuffing him amid the stubble. The bell pressed on, but the wing tallied 60 lost. 198 aircrew dead or captured, Schwinfort's factories scarred but unslain. Word winged west on the evening wind, survivors debriefs in the 384th's Red Feather Club, ale soured by grief. Peasley's after action, teletype to Vate, bomber command, prop failures critical, 3 forts down to Governor Jams, hydramatics, liability and combat loads. The signal cascaded to High Wycombe's ops vans where Eaker's staff scowled, to the Pentagon's map rooms, Spots's pipe going cold. By October 16th, it reached Hartford, a War Department courier, leather dispatch case under arm, pounding Caldwell's bungalow door at 600, rain sheeting the stoop like tears. Frank, bleary from a cot vigil over failure logs, accepted the sheaf, yellow flimsies stamped top secret, eyes only. He read in the kitchen's dawn gloom, Helen brewing coffee black as the news, her hand on his shoulder a tether. The Schwinfort toll, 60 bombers, 600 men, 5 crews to prop seizures. Lucky Lady the starkest. Ramsey's statement, smudged and shaken. Hub took the hit clean, but the innards froze. No feather, no fight. Caldwell's prop killed us, or near enough. DeMarco's rosary, recovered from the wreck, tucked in as exhibit. Beads bloodied, a mute indictment. Caldwell didn't crumple, he calcified, face ashen as aluminum filings, spectacles slipping unheeded. My math betrayed them. Helen's voice cracked the silence, mug clinking on saucer. Frank, it's shrapnel and sabotage echoes, not your soul, but go. Fix it where it broke. Responsibility wasn't a cloak he donned, it was a chain he forged himself. By noon, wires snapped to Spots. Request transport to England, on-site audit, pilot interviews, hydromatic redesign, effective immediate. To Meade, plant halt on suspect batches, full liability assumed, my signature on the line. The board balked, Meade's call from the Waldorf, voice tinny over the Atlantic cable. Frank, you're the golden goose, can't risk U-boats for a field trip. But Caldwell's reply was adamant. Goose or goat, George, I'm the designer, Schwinfort's on me. The crossing was a crucible. Pan Am Clipper from Baltimore to Foynes, Ireland, luxury liner of the skies, but war's weight bowed her wings. Caldwell boarded October 18th, briefcase crammed with X-rays and oscillographs, Helen's kiss lingering like a talisman. Over the black Atlantic, he sketched feverishly. Redundant flyball cluster, electro-hydraulic backup, orifice redesign, tapered, self-sealing, sleep evaded. Instead, ghosts, DeMarco's imagined plea, Ramsey's inverted world. Precision, promised survival. I delivered death. Landfall at Prestwick, Scotland. Rain-lashed tarmac, a staff car whisking him south to Bassingbourn, 303rd Bomb Group's grass airstrip. Eaker met him at dispersal. 8 Bomber Command's chief, lean as a bomb rack, eyes hollow from the ledger's losses. Frank, welcome to the slaughterhouse. Crews are ghosts. Blame the props, blame the range, blame God. But your hydromatics, they saved more than they sank. Yesterday, a fortress feathered clean over the Zyder Z, limped home on 2. Caldwell gripped the general's hand, calluses to brass. Save don't console the sunk, General. Show me the wrecks, the men. England was exhaustion etched in khaki, Nissen huts hunkered under camouflage netting, runways cratered by the Blitz's memory, air thick with glycol and gun oil. Caldwell's odyssey unfolded in the 303rd's hangars. Wrench monkeys in sheepskin jackets patching Hell's Angels with blowtorches and prayers. He started with the iron, a salvaged hub from Lucky Lady, crated back via C-54, brass orifice shattered like a dropped watch crystal, shrapnel scars veining the piston. Under a gooseneck lamp he dissected, calipers probing the jam's geometry, magnifier revealing the fatal cascade. Impact stress plus vibration harmonicals microfracture propagation equals binding. But metal spoke silent. Men roared the truth. Interviews commenced in the officers' club, a Quonset drum reeking of damp wool and bad scotch. Pilots fresh from the rack, flight suits unzipped, eyes shadowed by Schweinfurt's scar. First, Letta Ramsey, leg in plaster, crutches propped like rifles, Tulsa drawl edged with bile. "Mr. Caldwell, sir, your prop's a marvel on paper, but up there, hit once and it's a trap. No manual override bit, lever froze solid. We rolled before I could pray." Caldwell leaned forward, notebook open. No defense, only questions. "Describe the hunt, Lieutenant. Frequency? Amplitude?" Ramsey sketched air with his hand, mimicking the shudder. Like a bucking bronc, 4 to 5 hertz. Started low, built to a teeth rattler. Blades walked pitch, course to fine, back again. Engine screamed 3200, airframe wept. Next, survivors from the invader's sister. Waist gunner Escomte Louis Purnell, Schwinfort vet with a purple heart for a flak splinter in his lung. "Hydromatics feather sweet on Sims, sir, but combat, debris sucks in. Saw one gummed with 190 brass, piston cocked, no flow. Crew bailed. I rode her down to 10,000, then punched out." Caldwell nodded, logging. "Foreign object ingestion, filter upgrade mandatory. Days blurred into debrief marathons. 20 pilots, 15 gunners in mess halls where spam gelled on tin plates and phonographs scratched Glenn Miller for morale. A tail gunner from the 305th, face boyish under frostbite scars. Love the climb, Mr. C, gets us above the heavies, but feather lag, half-second too slow, and you're windmilling a drag chute." A co-pilot, bandaged from burns. "Over Berlin last week, number 1 seized. Manual worked, but oil sprayed the windshield. Blind in the box." Caldwell listened, not as engineer but confessor, spectacles fogged by the hut's peat stove, pen flying. Common threads, impact tolerance low. Manual redundant insufficient, vibration resonance at 2,700 RPM. One eve in the 384th's photo hut, darkroom trays sloshing developer, he cornered Peasley over maps pinned with raid tracks. "Colonel, your formations, tight boxes, stress props uneven. Torque mismatches?" Peasley stubbed his lucky strike, ash dusting the lamination. "Damn right. Lead ships pull hard, wingmen lag, hydromatics sink 'em, mostly. But one jam ripples, formation opens, fighters pounce." The pilgrimage peaked at the 100th bomb group, bloody 100th. Thorpe Abbott's bloodied eagles, their losses a ledger of legends. There, in a wind-bitten hangar, Caldwell met Desmond Cook, ex-RAF Spitfire ace, now ferrying Yank Tech as liaison, mustache grayed by the Blitz's weight. Cook clasped his hand, grip like a control column. "Frank Caldwell, prophet of pitch, your hydromatic saved my squadron in 40. Climbed us over the Dorniers when fixed pitch would have fed us to the sea." Caldwell's throat tightened, vindication's ghost. "And now they've damned good men, squadron leader. Schwinfort, walk me through a survivor's eye." Cook led him to a gutted B-17. Our gal Sal, flak-riddled from the raid, nacelles yawning empty. They climbed the catwalk, wind whistling through holes like accusatory flutes. Here, Hub took a 20mm clean. Governor held for 30 seconds, feathered partial, bought time for shoots. But the hunt felt it in the stick, like the airframe's heartbeat gone or rhythmic. "Your oil's genius, Frank, but brass bends." Under the nacelle, flashlight probing, Caldwell traced the scar. Orifice cratered, flyweight sheared. Resonance amplified the frag. Revelation crystallized, not design's doom but war's warp. Combat's harmonics, untested in peacetime spins. "Desmond, you've flown both, spits to forts, what breaks first?" Cook's eyes, sea blue and storm-scarred, met his. "The human bit, always. But your prop, it's the quiet hero, till it isn't. Redesign it unbreakable, mate, for the lads who don't come back." Caldwell's sketches evolved in snatched hours. A bungalow borrowed at Bassingbourn, paraffin lamps guttering, tea cooling untouched. The new hydromatic, Mark II, baptized Schweinfurt Secure. Core, dual redundant governors, primary oil-driven, secondary electromechanical, solenoid slave to RPM via generator tap. Orifices, tapered titanium inserts, self-sealing with synthetic rubber dams, impact-tolerant to 30mm, ingestion-proof with centrifugal baffles. Flyweights clustered in opposition, damping resonances at 2,500 to 3,000 Hz. Manual override, cable linked, zero lag, with shear pins for emergency jettison. Efficiency held 94% cruise, but survivability spiked. Feather time 1.5 seconds, even bound. He wired Hartford October 25th. Redesign blueprints enclosed. Tooling priority, titanium runs, solenoid coils from GE. Test to destruction, 5,000 cycles, 10 G vibes. Meade's reply crackled affirmative. "Plant retools. Your call, Frank." Maria's on the baffles. Eddie's wiring the backups. Return flight was Revelation's rocket. C-54 from Prestwick, Caldwell wedged amid crates of Norden parts, sketching refinements till turbulence tossed the plane like a leaf. Stateside November 1st, autumn blaze in Connecticut, leaves carpeting the drive like fallen banners. Helen met him at the gate, embrace fierce, but his eyes burned with borrowed fire. The cruise, the ghosts. It's not fixed, love, but fiercer. For Schwinfort's sake. The rebuild was a redemption rite. Hamilton's bays, idled for audit, roared back under Caldwell's lash. Titanium forges glowing white-hot, coil winders whirring like sewing machines on steroids. Maria Esposito now shift lead, her roving eye on every insert. No cracks, signor, like Mama's ravioli sealed tight. Eddie Jr. Jury-rigged test stands. Vibration tables shaking at 15G. Flak simulators lobbing dummy rounds into mock hubs. Helen's quality web ensnared flaws. A solenoid stutter caught at 4,200 cycles, tweaked overnight. Climax brewed in the expanded Whirl Bay. November 15th, 300 hours. Plant a ghost town, save the night cruise glow. The Mark II prototype, four-bladed for fortress torque, hub bulging with backups like a armored heart. Caldwell manned the console himself, gauges arrayed like a cockpit, stopwatch in fist. Cycle 1, full envelope. Switch thrown, whir to roar, RPM spooling to 2,400. Governor primary sighing pitch from coarse to fine, seamless as breath. Vibration trace, flatline at 0.003 inches. Then the gauntlet, simulated hit, a pneumatic ram slamming the hub, mimicking 20mm shear. Primary faltered, oil line kinked but secondary kicked, solenoid clicking, electro pitch feathering in 1.4 seconds, blades aligning parallel with a hydraulic kiss. RPM stabilized at 2,200, no hunt, no howl. Efficiency, 95% recovery. Caldwell eased the throttle, the stand winding down to a contented hum. Data scrolled, resonance damped 98%. Failure mode, jettison at 120% load. He stepped back, hands trembling, not fatigue but absolution. Helen entered, thermos steaming, her smile a sunrise. It held, Frank. Flawless, he nodded, voice husky as the dying spin. Not flawless, forgiven. For Ramsey, DeMarco, all of them. But forgiveness was fleeting. The war's wolfpack hungered. As the Mark II queued for production, first shipments to the 8th Air Force by December's frost, Luftwaffe scouts sniffed the shift. A captured P-51 over Aachen, hub intact, yielded to Berlin's labs. Amerikaner Redundanz, unzerbrechlich? Too late, the edge sharpened. Spotz's Christmas memo from D.C. Frank, your rebuild's the blade. Thunderbolts'll carve the skies clean. Yet as snow dusted the forges, Caldwell stood vigil in the bay, the prototype's hum, a lullaby laced with longing. Schwinfort had shattered, now stronger steel mended. But mending invited mastery, the dominance that would turn hunters to hunted. The redesigned propeller spun without surrender, its first flawless test, a quiet vow, etched in data and steel. But as winter's grip tightened on the factories, the true forge awaited. Combat's Coliseum, where U.S. fighters would wield Caldwell's redemption like a sword, leaving the Luftwaffe to study wreckage in wide-eyed wonder. The skies over Fortress Europe had become a coliseum of the damned and the defiant. By spring 1944, the 8th Air Force's thunder swelled to Supremacy. 2,000 bombers daily, Mustangs and Thunderbolts as long-legged lances, punching into the Reich's vitals, from Regensburg's Messerschmitt hives to Plestis oil veins. Operation Argument, Big Week's February Blitz, bent the Luftwaffe's spine, shattering 500 fighters in 7 days of fire and fury. But it was precision's poetry, etched in Caldwell's Mark II hydramatics. The propeller that stuttered at Schwinfort now sang salvation. Constant speed in dogfight frenzy, feathering flawless under flak's kiss, climbing like a comet where once it crawled. Frank W. Caldwell's redemption was baptized in blood over the fatherland, where U.S. fighters didn't just survive. They dominated. The P-47 Thunderbolt, that 8-ton behemoth with her R-2800 double wasp bellowing 2,800 horses, transcended her lowland bully roll with the Mark II. 4 blades of heat-treated aluminum, hubs armored in titanium redundancy. Climb rate spiked to 3,200 feet per minute at 15,000 feet. A 28% leap turning plowhorse to predator. No overspeed whine and vertical scissors. The governor's electro-hydraulic whisper held RPM at 2,500, torque steady as a heartbeat, letting pilots like Nicole. Neil Kirby hauled to 30,000 feet where 109s gasped. The Mustang P-51B's liquid-cooled Merlin, a silk purse from Packard's Detroit, was the scalpel to the Jug's sledge. Slender as a rapier, drop tanks like bandoliers, roaming 500 miles deep. Caldwell's prop her sinew, fine pitch for 440-knot sprints, coarse for takeoff grunt from Ibsley's steel strips. Efficiency tallied in kills. 4th Fighter Group's 334th Eagles notched 100 victories in March. Merlin-governed climbs outpacing the U-190s by 800 feet per minute. "It's like the engine anticipates the turn," marveled Captain Don Blakesley, chain-smoking CO, drawl crackling over RT from a 20,000-foot bounce. Caldwell's gizmo reads my mind. Jerry's chase shadows. Combat superiority etched in Darwinian dance. April 29th, over Ludwigshafen chemical plants belching plumes under noon sun, the 357th Yoxford Boys launched 48 Mustangs from Suffolk. Led, Major Pappy Olds, 33, Silver Fox with Yale degree and rising tally. His Scatman sported the Mark II's bulge, baffles ingestion-proof, solenoid silent. Radar-pinged bandits at Angels 22, 30 plus 109 Gs from JG 300, greenhorns in the grinder. Olds keyed RT, Eagles tally-ho, 30 plus, 2 o'clock high. Climb to engage, watch 6. Throttles bit, Merlins to 3,000 RPM, Governors seamless, Mustangs spooling altitude like yo-yos. 109's Dove cannon winking, P-51's reversed, Old 7G Immelmann prop torque nil, cresting 25,000 as Germans overshot. Gun cam's word, Olds at 50's chattered 450 rounds, stitching a Gustav, smoke, silk shroud. Splash 1 break left. Wingman Elter Chuck Pierce tangled a pair, scissors reversal, Governor at 380 knots, nailing the trail with 30-degree lead. Splash 2, furball devolved, Mustangs inside radials, hydromatics negating torque snaps. Egress, 12 kills, 2 probables, 1 Mustang limping on feathered Merlin, Governor Auto in 1.2 seconds glide 17 were 1 to raid on wood. Debrief haze, Olds paced, unzipped. Caldwell's wizardry, Dove 450 indicated pulled vertical, no flutter. Mark II, chasing versus choosing, Intel capped. Glenn Duncan jotted prop plus 1000 FPM versus 109 G, odds 3-1 USAF. Yoxford tally, 112 kills, 18 losses, 6-1 mocking 43 despair. Across the channel, Normandy's D-Day beaches baked, air war tracers twilight. 9th Air Force Thunderbolts, tactical thugs wielded hydromatics like wrath wands. Caller Francis Gabi Gabreski, Polish vein, 28 kills brewing, flew Hobson's Choice from Lashendon. June 17th over Coutances, hedgerow hell spotted FW-190s strafing Shermans. Tally 12 plus ground, dive disrupt. Nose over, jug from 12,000 to 500 feet in 45 seconds. Governor course for brakes, RPM 2300, no surge. Bombs on dump, fireworks, guns hot, 50s hosing bellies, 3 splashes. 190 reversed, desperate climb. Gabreski followed, full throttle, fine pitch silk, outclimbing 400 FPM, high side at 8,000. Splash 4, wingman Cap Don Bauquet, she's a climber, prop bites like teeth. Dominance cascaded, big weak wake, Luftwaffe sorties plummeted, 1-200 lost by May, factories strafed. Goering's 3,000 Eagles dwindled to 1,500, Hitler Youth fodder for Mustang Maws. Captured JG-52CO at Dulag Luft. American propellers, do not tire. VDMs shift like old men, theirs like gods, cannot catch eternal climb. Berlin's labs, Technische Universität Sanctums Mausoleums of Disbelief. Shadow of Brandenburg, Luftwaffe engineers in threadbare grays huddled over captured P-51C hub from Magdeburg crash July 44. Pilot Kia, Mark II intact, titanium baffles dented, solenoids gleaming. Dr. Hans Weber, ex-Junkers 48, Stalingrad limp, lead, team of 5 Wraith circled bench. Hub splayed, flyweights opposed, orifices self-heal, electro-Yankee heresy. Weber traced piston, unmöglich, oil electric wed Zauberei. Manual spin, click hiss, 10 to 80 degrees seamless. Efficiency mocked VDM 92% versus 78%, kill climb bias. Junior Fritz Klein 24, Eastern mud, ingestion-proof, Ars choke on grass, swallows flax, spits feathers. Weber's ledger, Amerikaner plus 35%, Stigrate, reverse unfeasible, titanium scarce. Goering teletype from Karen Hall, Devil returns Amis Falcons, steel build break. Disassembly dash chalk diagrams, mock Dornier test grenaded at 2,600 RPM, cascade failure. Weber to Air Ministry August 1st, Caldwell's debris named obsolete hours, disparity 1,200 mies from in, retreat to ground, Himmel theirs, skies to hunters. Mariana's 15th Mustangs versus Zeros over Saipan Pacific pivot. Meiji Richard Bong's P-38's hydromatic tooled 40th over Belay. P-47 from 348th Dove Oscar at 500 feet, Governor damp torque, no snap, guns true. Look, Gerald Johnson, Caldwell's turn dive dream, no flutter 550 knots, 0 unseen. Europe crescendo, September 27th, frantic Poltava shuttles, 55th P-38s escorted B-24s to Budapest. Captain Robin Olds, 22 scat climb 28,000 Governor Suite, reversed sun. 40 Mackeys, furball 5 minutes, 10 kills, lightnings inside radials feathering burble free. Olds cam, Mackey wing fold. Splash lead, energy 1 pre-start. Teletype, hydromatic bias decisive, losses 0. Luftwaffe despair, captured FW 19888 diary near Arnhem. Amerikaner Jugsteigen Martiten, ours Jol, theirs sinked. Caldwell fluke oder Gott. Aces like Walter Nowotny, props govern gods. Dive escape, you climb conquer. December 44 Rhinelace, 409th vs. Me 262 jets, Luftwaffe Swan 540 knots. Caller Hub Zemke's Mustangs climbed intercept, fine pitch 3,100 RPM, Merlin strat thin stern chase. Zemke's burst-tailed 262, splash 1 variable obsolete. Flash fast we wait high, prop patience. Reichden's Dessau half-shelled, studied shard silent. Captured P-47 hub, Berlin landing 45. Dr. Weber monocled redundance unscarred. Electro link, oil fails current commands. Jets no match humility. Memo to Dunitz, Caldwell's invisible invasion. Skies lost finesse, not numbers. Surrender, include patents. Irony coiled. 33 fool Curtis smeared. Now Reich Rosetta. Blueprints begged defeats dusk. Hartford Caldwell Red Weber's confession lamplight. Helen sighed. Test hum requiem. Studied doubt, found dominance, he thought. Spin vindication spiral. Winter thawed spring truce. Eisenhower Elb flak toppling. Edge command calculus. Briggen Carl Spots, Rhymes Chateau, April 15, 45, valedictory onion skin, courier sealed. To Frank W. Caldwell, Hamilton Standard, decks slot to Dover docks, hydromatic unseen ace, 15,000 kills, formations held breaks, cruise home screams no. Climb rewritten, survivability soared, Mark II Predators prey, Luftwaffe lament trophy, edge victory, not bomb blast, prop patient turn. War ends, air hours. Carl A. Spots, USAF. Caldwell folded ledger beside Collier dust, Schwinfort scars. Bayhum swelled conquest chorus blades blew last. Spots' ink dried, Reich banners burned. Caldwell's quill skies surrender. VE day dawned, Europe's rubble, vigil inward factory silent, world fly forgetting maker. May 8, 1945, VE dawn, Connecticut benediction deferred. Sepia blooms, newsreels, Times Square surge, sailors, nurses, ticker snow. London Churchill Feath Big Ben, Hartford whistles shriek, workers tide, overalls tears. Camera inward. Hamilton shadowed maw, smokestacks cool silence, lines stilled sigh breath. Narrator softens, valedictory hush, war's won no fanfare, faint faithful whir machine rest. War ended whisper, exhale scarred 6 fire famine. 2301 Rhymes schoolhouse, Jodl scrawled surrender, Eisenhower unblinking. Radio carrier pigeons, Europe over. America bells sea shining, Europe dead 50 million, ledger vast tears. Quiet corners real rot, silence dew blade. Frank Caldwell, 56, threshold silence, sketched stable gloom, weathered ridicule Schweinfurt grief, hush hand shoulder. Hair hawk black, silver contrail, frame wing spar stoop 1,000 spins. Weathersfield bungalow, clapboard modest, porch creek breeze. Relics, Collier tarnished drawer. Spots framed yellow blueprint, Helen embroidery grandsons. Vigil factory, Colossus commanded, contracting lung rest. VE Knot Streets revelers, plant heart, Whirl Bay earthquake cathedral prototypes thundered. Lines halted noon, whistles wail, foremen backs, Maria weep kerchief, Eddie Jr. bootleg rye thermos. Props propped, Eddie toast thick, father ghost grin. Caldwell nod cup, coffee black equations, slip cheers crest, boots corridors cool forge. Twilight grime skylights guild stands amber. Bay hangar vast, ghosts linseed lover perfume, aluminum tang memory, ozone arc silenced. Racks hubs, Mark III jets, sentinel dust winding. Caldwell last rig 42, armature vibration scars, panel toggle burns. Flick master, not roar, idle whisper. Motor cough relic, settle hum, faint rhythmic 800 RPM, 3-bladed lazy gloaming. Watched hands clasp, spectacles spin blur. Blades birch Michigan, fine gentle, whisper air, Susurrus pines. No cycle dance. Turn, the eternal carried Mustangs Mersey, thunderbolts typhoon, fortresses fire. Worked? Thought hum vain old friend, doubt deluge death, not me, machine, patient unyielding. Door creak, Helen step feather, apron victory soil. Aged grace, eyes efficiency hair Gibson 33, thermos telegram. Yellow London Desmond, skies clear chap, props peace. Beers Dover ghosts quiet. Set poor shared tin, steam contrails dawn. Helen, low days wear. Frank Boys Hall, Maria real Eddie's line. Come, world toasting you too. Mug warmth, calluses, translucence, eyes spin. Toasting what, love? End? Echo? Hand rig edge, fingers ghost dampers, Schwinfort upgrades. Hum, heartbeat gave, 200,000 shipped Helen. P-51's 40,000, B-29's Tokyo governed, spots edge, edges dull. Lean shoulder duet hum. Dull, sharpened world Frank, pilots home you, Ramsey limp letters kids, Cook squadron statues Kent, quiet peace not punishment. Smile rare crooked crinkle glass, peace forgotten word. Prop oblivious, no refute forge midnights. Factory bay echo hollow, presses giants sleep, belts serpents rest. 15,000 furlough, farms Fords, Maria Bridgeport vines, Gino Naples safe. Hamilton pivot, DC-6 civil jets Morrow. Caldwell, skepticism defy obsolescence pull gentle drag feather glide. Footsteps, Eddie Jr. tie askew flush hoedown. Boss, mayor blower, key city, profit prop parade noon. Chuckle rumble dying radial. Thanks Ed, profits no parade, regards. Blueprints high school shop, kids spin own. Eddie linger hum pause. Built more metal Frank, dad flew higher ace. One dance? Nod mud drain, turn Caldwell pause panel throttle 0. Prop slow, whir whoosh whisper blur distinct still. Silence crash profound bailed sky. Switch bay twilight embrace, follow Helen dusk. Arm hers world weight lift breath. Silence Caldwell never absolute. The night's transition tapestry, telegrams far flung hum legacy. Thorpe Peasley general shard, lucky lady mended walnut. Shatter shield, Mark II bloody hundredth, drinks DC dust. Manston Cook mustard verse Governor Gale, dog ear spit sketches. Guadalthac Admiral Squadron plaque, Hydramatics edge flew. Archive bungalow study, sanctum slide schematics walls wind ghosts. Helen garden victory peas trellis climb rates, Tinker garage bench, lathe mini hubs models, neighborhood lads eyes whirl. Mr. Caldwell, Tommy Braddock, Helen nephew 10-toe fly Mustangs. Neil oil streak twist pitch, not like sun, like heart, climb listen wind. World moved, dive recovery swift, summer headlines atomic Hiroshima VJ-45 dog. Hamilton Bay's piece, Convair 240 hubs turbine tees. Mead boardroom air condition, Camel's Vice, Soul shop Frank, lead jet, dimmer altimeter even. Soul's no desks George, consult advise spins, line Maria's eddies. Retirement no rust refinement. Lecture MIT Hall's crew cut cadets Merlin math. Precision no perfection, intone chalk cuff graph arc victory. Persistence, governor yields no breaks. Questions Mark II solenoids Schweinfurt pause Denver dawn distant. Ask pilots, flew faith. Haunt gentle, drive Stapleton Jetport 247 ghost tourist. Eddie Allen gone 39 crash, climb theodolites linger. Letter Vance Florida retiree, wrong dead Frank, prop war, beer's liver. Reply blueprint, no debts Vance, data scores. Moral margins, mocked haunted mended. Reverence routine stopwatch click grandson model rain pat hangar idle. Helen notice, smile deep nocturnal sketch softened sailboat Long Island. Climbing Frank, supper roast victory greens sky no here. Autumn Eve 47 humback. Plant peacetime lean open house. Veterans Bay's Kids Whirl Museum. Caldwell podium corner throng. Aces leather widow's victory. Machinists callous kin. Spots silver pipe clap Frank Mike sea level steady. Ladies gentlemen warriors witnesses hush pre-takeoff. Built more propellers, trust feathers fear flight. Denver doubt Dover defiance machine impossible inevitable. No flawless listened. Laugh anthropic, pilots nod. Flew forged felt, feeling, climb cruise survival truth, victory no loud. Quiet blade turn, forgets no rise. Applause thunder, seismic, spots rise aces widows quiet rain wings. Crest Caldwell step weave bay edge. Relics young engineer wide slide 6-gun demo rig. Switch hum awake prop lazy blur blades eternal whisper. Watched alone throng sound old jacket. Turns still, thought vibration palm stand. Nation climbs higher, jets moons tomorrow, faith this. World moved, jet sonic lunar dust Korea shadow Vietnam green. Consult 55 fade, bookshelf AIA groan garage ham radios pilot crackle. Helen 62 peaceful garden peas apron, void feather memories. Frank 6879 heart sketch mid Apollo prop gravity gale. Name? Footnote texts plaque Air Force Museum. Frank W. Caldwell constant speed father 1889 to 1968. Skies safe. No parade prime eulogy. Every airliner transatlantic hum trainer Oshkosh wheel F-16 carved blue hum lingers. Quiet engineer courage wars shadows. Said propeller never work. Genius no loud, patient. Caldwell no chase glory, built reliability. Reliability and American fighters untouchable. Built machine forgot no climb, nation saved neither. Love innovation stories changed history. Subscribe more true tales, genius grit transformation.